Desert Island Comics, in which famous creators of comics choose 5 comics or graphic novels to take to a desert island, as well as 1 luxury item and their favourite flavour of crisps or type of biscuit. And on this edition, we are truly privileged to welcome artist, musician, former comics laureate, and really British comics royalty, Charlie Adlard.
Wow.
Thank you.
I like the
Hello,
last bit, or comic royalty. That's very impressive.
Obviously, we've all been in lockdown for quite a while now. Could you start off maybe telling us, is there one thing that you've done whilst you've been confined to your home that you've never done before?
Ooh, well, I've done something which I haven't done for years, many years, which was clean our cars. And the garden's never been tidier as well.
Okay. You say how many cars have you got?
Well, I say cars. It's like, our fleet of cars. Yeah. No, just mine, my wife's, and my eldest son, who passed his driving test last year. So.
Well, now let's go back right to the very start. So just thinking of you as an artist, can you remember what was the first picture you ever drew?
I can't remember the first picture, but I do remember when I was really young, and I didn't draw comic books per se, but I drew narratively. So I'd sit there and draw, sequential pictures, but not in panels or anything.
When you say sequentially, but not in panels, you mean separate pictures, but you just didn't draw actual...
Yeah. It was just a mass at the end of the page. It was just a mass of just figures, backgrounds, whatever I was drawing. It was, some of it was so scratty, it was probably indecipherable, but yeah, and I did that for years. I seem to remember. That was me drawing comics when I was a kid, almost. Before I realised that perhaps I should order it a bit more and put it into panels, etc.
And thinking back to that time then, so what's your first comic choice that you're going to take to a desert island?
Right, my first comic choice would be Asterix. That's one of my earliest memories, actually. When I was about 6 or 7, my dad used to go to this petrol station and fill up his car. And one time it was running a promo, and it was it was giving away Asterix books. And I think it was Asterix the Gaul, Asterix the Gladiator, Asterix and the Big Fight, and Asterix and the Legionnaire. I remember the 4. I pestered him and, wanted him to always go and fill up the car at that specific petrol station until I had all 4. And that began my collecting of Asterix.
But you can't take all...
I can't take the whole collection, I know. Well, if my one single Asterix book, I think that I would take to a desert island would be Obelix and Co. Because...
the one Asterix book that isn't actually an Asterix book.
Asterix is obviously... it's the only Asterix book that isn't Asterix and something. Yeah. So funnily enough, I just think it's a genius book because it's such a great parody of business that Goscinny and Uderzo came up with, and I think it was Uderzo especially drawing at the height of his powers. It was just phenomenal. Humor beyond brilliance. Drawing beyond brilliance. And had something to say as well. Sadly,
we lost Uderzo just recently. Did you ever get to meet the great man?
No, I'd have. Well, my shall we say, my encounters with my heroes have never come out very well. that's just from my own.
Tell us about one embarrassing encounter with a hero.
I was at an awards ceremony, a music awards ceremony, funnily enough, and Peter Gabriel was in attendance in the audience, and he was actually giving out an award, and I was obsessed with somehow I had to say something to him or whatever, and he was about to go. So I was like, ah, quickly, you know. So I rushed over with this woman that I was talking to, and just tapped him on the shoulder and just went, photo, like that. And he was perfectly nice, and he took a photo, and we swapped, and I took a photo of him and this other woman, and I just sort of mumbled, oh, thanks very much, you know. And it was one of those things I had in my head, stuff I was going to say, and I could design Peter Gabriel's next project or whatever, you know, or give him my card, and all that went completely out the window in the mass panic of just trying to virtually, you know, grab him by the ankles before he exited the building.
And has he been on the phone asking you to do an album cover?
Oh yeah, he totally remembered me, that weird person that just mumbled photo at him. Yeah.
All right, what's your second comic or graphic novel?
My second one would be Peanuts.
Why Peanuts?
Again, it's a childhood thing. I think the genius of Peanuts is the economy of line that Schultz and so many other cartoonists before and after him have used. But for me, it hit me at the right time, I think. Yeah, sort of going into adolescence, reading about these kids, little kids that were obviously younger than I was, but you sort of obviously could relate to so much, that they were going through. And I suppose arguably I could relate to Charlie Brown specifically. You know, I could relate to him being kind of that frustrated guy that never really wins, shall we say, you know, especially in their youth. You know, I wasn't particularly forward. I remember trying to draw Peanuts, and, you know, on the surface it looks so deceptively simple, obviously. That's the magic of it. But you try and draw those characters, only Schultz can draw them. What
is it that goes wrong when you're trying to draw a Peanuts character?
I think it's because every line means something. You know, Schultz would draw something where if you took that line away, the whole thing would collapse. So if you can't get that line precisely right with that precise pen, etc., etc., it doesn't look. It just basically doesn't look like those characters. And you know, I would say my probably favourite, because I've started to collect those really nice the Sunday ones that they're putting out now. So I've only started sort of collecting them from the late 60s.
So we will give you, let's say we will give you the Peanuts Omnibus 1968 to 1978. How's that?
That's perfect, yes. Thank you for helping me out with that one.
No, I think that'll give you plenty to read as well. Now, as well as being an artist, of course, you considered becoming a professional musician, didn't you?
Well, I play the drums for people that don't know. And I only started to learn when I was about 16, 17 at school. And a friend of mine who played, he was a sort of a multi-instrumentalist. He learned violin at school, but he played keyboards, he played guitar, you know. And I was always kind of slightly jealous of people that were in bands, but obviously I couldn't play a thing, you know. And so this friend of mine said, well, I'll take you to the music school, the music room at school, and there's a kit there, see what you can do. So I sort of sat down and I could hammer out a basic rhythm. I always used to sort of hammer out rhythms on my desk at school and things like that when, well, obviously not in the middle of a lesson, but, you know, in break time. So I kind of thought I had a sense of rhythm, and we went from there, and I've always been in bands ever since.
Is there a particular drum solo that you like to play?
I'm not, well, a drum solo. Well, I'm not a big drum soloist. Actually, my favourite drummer is Stuart Copeland of the Police.
Okay.
If you want me to cite, but he's not a soloist either. He doesn't really solo. It's very hard to be an original sounding drummer, to be honest.
And it's time for comic number 3.
Alan Moore, Eddie Campbell from Hell. Of any comic I've ever read, it's the only comic I've read that made me physically gasp, and go, oh my God, like that. Aside from it just being an incredible bit of work in terms of, especially from Alan Moore, in terms of, sort of the research and just the sheer amount of work behind the scenes that he put into it. But yeah, the bit that made me gasp is the bit where he basically, they're doing the sort of the tour, but you know what I mean, the tour of London, and it culminates, I can't remember what church it culminates in, and it all forms the star and everything, and you just think, wow, that's even though it's kind of slightly obvious that it will do that, but at the same time, it's the perfect kind of culmination of that story, that bit of story.
Yes.
And I read it. I remember I was.
This was the idea that the Hawksmoor churches in London, if you draw lines between them, they form, I can't quite remember, they form a sort of a pentagram star.
A pentagram, yeah, exactly.
I never actually checked on a map if that's true.
No, I should just look on a map. Yeah. I don't know, I never checked. I didn't have a map to hand because I took them all to Canada with me. It was when I was doing the X-Files many, back in the early 90s. And, I spent a few days in Vancouver and then a few days in Toronto. And it was just, you can, to be honest, when you're on your own, you can only do so much as a tourist. So I had a lot of downtime.
If you're reading it a long way away from home and it's sort of stuck in a hotel room, it must be quite a sort of dissociative experience reading From Hell. I mean, because it's so bleak.
I do remember the Toronto room, the hotel room. It was a nice hotel. It was a nice room. But the view was the worst view I think I've ever had in a hotel, which was the classic, open the curtain, there was a brick wall, and that kind of added to the whole atmosphere of reading it. I remember sort of evenings, sort of sat there because I'd go out and get something to eat, sit there in a restaurant on my own, which is always a bit odd, and just sort of slope back to the hotel, nothing else to do, and read one of the books. This brick wall at the window.
I think it's a very good choice because, on your desert island, you'll be able to move between sort of being cheered up by Charlie Brown and co, and then you can sort of just take your mood down whenever you need to by opening From Hell.
Exactly, but then I can close that book and look at the glorious view of my desert island, you see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now you mentioned that you went to film school, and I was wondering if you could recommend a film for us all to watch during this period when we're all stuck in our houses so much.
The only one I can think of at the moment, which again harkens back, well, not necessarily back to my childhood, but harkens back to kind of my more youthful times, which was Dario Argento's Suspiria.
Oh yes.
So yeah, happy movie.
It is a happy movie, really, isn't it? I mean, it's so over the top. It is joyous.
It is. Well, I was just about to say, even though it's a horror movie, it's so colourful and so crazy, and everything about it is so dialed up to 110 that it is almost a celebration of. It's certainly a celebration of filmmaking, if nothing else.
So we're already up to your fourth comic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, which would be, I've got to give a shout out in general to my love of bande dessinée, obviously French comic books, but it's, to give it its French title, L'Autoroute du Soleil by a French artist called Barou. I think the reason I like him is he's in that grand tradition of French artists like Uderzo who draws highly sort of cartoony characters, but they're all grounded in reality. That's the like Asterix is, every background is immaculately researched, and it's the same with Barou. The backgrounds are almost diametrically opposed to to the actual characters. It's almost like traditional hand animation, when you got, I don't know, cats chasing mice and they talk and everything, yet the backgrounds are highly beautifully rendered watercolors, that sort of thing. So one year I just remember coming across this book and I've never heard of Babu at the time, and just falling in love with his artwork. And I'm embarrassed to say as well, it's obviously the only book in my list of Desert Island comics which I haven't actually read.
You haven't read it?
There's no translation.
Oh, I see.
It's in French. So my French is so terrible, I'm not going to sit there.
It's purely an artistic.
This is purely an artistic thing. I'm sure the story is very good. It looks very good, and
God knows what they're doing, but
yeah,
it looks fun.
He excels in kind of, I suppose, for want of a better word, sort of more kitchen sink drama sort of stuff. It's not big overblown action thriller or sci-fi or anything like that. He does concentrate on real stuff.
Okay. Now, obviously, you are pretty well known for The Walking Dead. I was wondering what I could ask one question about that, and what I'd actually like to know is this: how do you set about drawing a zombie?
Well, you see, from my point of view, a zombie is the easiest and also hardest thing to draw. If I'm drawing, when I used to draw The Walking Dead, because most zombies I just make up as I go along, because there's so many of them, obviously, in the book that I can't, it would be just an impossible task to actually think about how to draw each individual zombie. So basically, the way I draw a zombie is if I'm penciling it, I'll just draw the classic oval and designate the eye line and the mouth line, and then start in with the pen straight away and just see where the pen takes me. And then, because you're just relying on chance and serendipity, you kind of end up with an original looking zombie because you just let your fingers do the drawing sort of thing.
I suppose that does make sense, because if zombies are literally just reanimated dead bodies, then it's total chance, isn't it, what part of that body may have decomposed, what part might have been eaten, in the ground. So actually just letting yourself go would seem to make sense.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just drawing your normal face, a normal human face, and just adding a lot of muck to it,
Okay. And so now, what's your final comic choice for the Desert Island?
Final comic choice will be Lazarus by Greg Rucka and Michael Lark.
And why have you chosen that?
I've chosen that because, again, similar to Alan Moore with From Hell, I think Greg has just built this incredible world. I do like stories that world build, whether it's obvious stuff like, I don't know, Game of Thrones on the television, or or going to comics, this sort of stuff. And I think Greg's just, I've always liked Greg's writing, but this, I think, is his kind of magnum opus. And again, not just Greg, but Michael as well. His artwork is truly phenomenal, and I'm amazed he's sort of carried on, shall we say, the quality of what he does for as long as he has. And it is the most amazingly researched from a writer and artistic point of view. And also, it's a bloody good story. I always find sometimes, especially in sort of the more commercial area of comics, there's a tendency to I know this sounds a weird thing to say, but there's a tendency to go beyond believability. Like, for instance, I just on recommendation, I just finished reading that latest X-Men thing that Jonathan Hickman had written. And it was fine, but the biggest problem I had, because it's a book where the majority of characters are kind of sitting around talking. Why are they sitting around talking all in costume?
Oh, yes.
And for me, it took the realism out of it. and that's what I'm talking about. Is it just wouldn't, like, you know, Magneto would not constantly be sat there with his helmet on and in his big cloak. It's not you know, practical.
Charlie,
So,
it's when they go to bed in their costume, that's when I draw the line.
well, yeah, exactly. There's a thing, and they're talking about, you know, this is a book that's formulating a thing. There are literally millions of mutants, and you're thinking, what? They've all got costumes, you know? So, yeah, just little things like that, kind of just.
So, and Lazarus brings it back to reality more.
Lazarus tells a bloody good story, brings it back. Everything makes sense in Lazarus. It totally makes sense. And that's not its biggest selling point by any stretch. It is the only ongoing story that I've chosen.
That's fine. Well, we'll have to post you the subsequent issues, you know, maybe via FedEx to your desert island.
Yes, please. Yes. Oh, yes. So yeah, I can't just go to a desert island with the last issue and then I'll be forever wondering what's happened next. You know, I would seriously rank it back. I think I'd seriously recommend it out of all the 5 books I've recommended, actually, to somebody that says, "Can I? Yeah, what are comics? How do I get into comics?" You know, I think it'd almost be the one I'd first give them, because I think they'll be able to handle it because it's drawn, you know, kind of realistically, which would probably detract, you know, your man on the street from Asterix and Peanuts or whatever. And yeah, they could see the possibilities of you know, just brilliant storytelling.
Well, I think that's an excellent point on which to end the main interview. But you do still have to choose.
Well, now for the most important bits.
Your luxury item.
Well, my luxury item is, as I'm sat here, actually, I don't know if you've got any shots of me actually with it, but my luxury item would probably be not a cup. That would be rather silly. I'd probably have to take some sort of bean to cup coffee machine with me, because I can't go a day on a desert island without my 11 o'clock brew. That's for sure.
Okay, so coffee machine. We'll just have to hope that there is some sort of generator on the desert island to operate it.
Yes, yes. Well, I'd have to just run around, you know, and create my own energy or something like that, you know, somehow, you know, so I can get the coffee.
Is available.
Hopefully I'll be marooned on a desert island that actually does have a coffee field or whatever. Pick my own.
Possibly. All right, and to go with your coffee, your other item that you can choose to take is your favourite flavour of crisps, of which you can have an inexhaustible amount.
Oh right, okay. I like crisps. They're not my go-to snack of choice, I would have to say. But if pushed, I would probably go for those kettle crisps, which was it? Cheese and chives or whatever, that flavour. Can't remember exactly.
But basically, you're saying posh cheese and onion.
Yes, posh cheese and onion. I do always go for cheese and onion for crisps, but yeah, posh cheese and onion, because they are slightly nicer. They are, yeah, I've got to admit.
Well, remind me not to stand next to you at a party.
But I would go for a biscuit or an item of chocolate, that's for sure.
Well, we did say it can be crisps or your favourite brand of biscuit, so let's hear your chosen biscuit as well.
Well, my chosen biscuit is I'm not absolutely sure on the brand, but they might be Marks and Spencer ones. But they're those ones with really thick chocolate on, especially the ones in the foil. Oh, they're really nice.
Would you say they're enrobed? Are they enrobed in chocolate?
Enrobed, very much, yes. But they certainly haven't gone. They haven't gone stingy on the old choc, which, you know, is a chocoholic myself. It's a good thing, you know. So.
So we will supply you. We'll supply you with lots of thickly chocolated biscuits.
Yes.
So the combination of them, the coffee and the crisps, you're obviously going to have a very healthy time on your desert island.
Well, you haven't given me an option of favourite fruit, have you?
No, true. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, Charlie, thank you very, very much for your time. Fascinating choices. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please have a warm round of applause for Charlie Adlard?